Hey folks, welcome back. We are back with our CCNA initiative. And just a reminder, guys, CCNA initiative, again, this is all free. This is all from myself, just to give you guys some knowledge, help you guys walk through the book, and do some lab just to give you guys my perspective on, of course, how I understand these topics to go ahead and pass the CCNA. If I can add value anywhere, me currently, I'm a CCNP. I actually fulfilled my CCNP requirements, and I'm actually now started my journey as of a year or two ago towards my CCIE. So wanted to, during this time, of course, I wanted to give back, share some knowledge with you guys. And in turn, this also helps me out to make sure I still know my knowledge. And of course, at any point, and the comments are open, if at any point I'm wrong about something, I have no issue with being wrong. You guys can correct me. I'll correct myself, and I'll even record a new video if need be. Again, I'm not a YouTube influencer. I'm not anything like that. This initiative is going to be as long as we have to go through the entire volume 1 and volume 2 of this CCNA 200-301. I repeat, the 200-301. Okay, so last time we spoke about, of course, MAC addresses, and it was chapter 5, going over analyzing Ethernet LAN switching. Okay, so now we will be going over chapter 6, which is titled configuring basic switch management. Okay, and so the first part, right? The first part we'll be going over is securing the switch CLI, right? Because of course, what we don't want to happen, right, is we set up a switch, right? We're excited, we got our CCNA, boom, right? We get a job, okay? And so we're the admin, right? We're the network admin or the network analyst, or what have you. The network engineers or the architect, they entrust us to go ahead and install this equipment, right? We install this equipment. What we don't ever want to do is install this equipment, okay? We install this equipment, but the access to it is unsecure, meaning there's no passwords, we're not mitigating this access, right? And what happens? Anybody can log into the switch and make changes to this device. How can this affect you, your job, and everybody else? Well, bad actors, because they do exist in this world, they can come in, make changes to the infrastructure, bring down the network, right? And that downtime of a network, no matter what industry, there is a cost to it, right? And that cost is the company losing money because it's not producing or in production of adding value to the organization, doing whatever it needs to be, whether it be processing orders, whether it be whatever it may be, right? That's the effect that this, I'm not even going to say it. I was going to say small thing, what this big thing of not setting a password can be, right? So let's go ahead and dive in. Again, us securing the switch, it applies to the same of securing a router. This entire section, right, is based off of both. But of course, Cisco made it solely for securing this switch's CLI. So we're going to focus on that, right? Of course, as in every session, I go ahead and show you guys the OSI model, right? We have the OSI model, we have the TCP/IP stack, right? And right now, again, this chapter is discussing layer 2, right? Securing layer 2, securing that switch that sits at layer 2. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on, right? So this is probably going to be a 4-part section, right, for this presentation. So this is going to be video 1 in the 4-part series of securing the CLI, right? And so what this chapter is going to do is going to cover those 4 topics you see on the screen, right? Securing user mode and privilege mode with simple passwords, okay? Passwords without, right, that are A, unencrypted, or B, unassociated with the username, right? They're just simple passwords. Just a password you have to type in, and that's it, right? And that's what we're going to talk about today, right? The other 3, of course, securing user mode access with local usernames, securing user mode access with external authentication servers, right? Whether it be a Windows server, Linux server, what have you. We'll go ahead and do that in a lab, and I'll show you guys how that works. And also securing remote access with secure shell, okay? So let's go ahead and focus on this first one today, right? Securing user mode and privilege mode with simple passwords. right? Just so you guys can get a feel and actually see how this looks like, right? So in our previous lessons, we spoke about the different modes. We spoke about user mode, right? That of course, that symbol in front of the host name of the device whenever you log in, you're going to know you're in user mode if you see, of course, the greater than sign, okay? Of course, to get into privilege exec mode, which is right after user mode, you would type enable, right? The keyword enable, which would then bring it to privilege exec mode. After privilege exec mode, if you want to make changes to the device, you can go ahead and go to global configuration mode, right? Okay. All right. And as you can see, right, we spoke about in the past, and again, this is just refreshing. We spoke about the different ways to access a switch or a router, right? We can access it via console cable, right? Layer one using a physical cable, right? Or we can access the device using layer three, right? Whether we're using SSH, using an IP address to go ahead and reach it, okay? And so we see our two PCs, right? In this diagram, and it's showing us, some of the concepts, right? We can go ahead and access it using, go ahead and access it using console cable, but we can actually set a password for console access, okay? Same goes for accessing the device via layer three, right? Because it's of course it's going to go ahead and access it either using Telnet or SSH. I hope not Telnet, right? But either way, we can use any of those, and we can set a VTY passwords, right? That'll apply to the VTY lines. Okay, so we can set that password, right? But what else can we do by looking at this diagram? We can also set a password that mitigates access to privilege mode. Okay, right? So before we put in the enable keyword, right, we can put in enable within user mode, and we can even mitigate that and say, hey, what's the password for enable? So we'll do that in the lab today. Let's go ahead and keep going. All right, so here's an example, right? If you look at this diagram, it's showing you that we first get into the switch, right? Whether it be console, whether it be VTY, right? And you're going to see a prompt that says user access verification. Okay. And so as soon as you log in, it'll show you that pass. It's going to give you the option to type in a password. Okay. You type in the password, boom, you will be brought into user mode. Okay. But of course, securing the console or the VTY lines, however you access the device via layer one or layer three, okay, the additional security that you're adding on to the CLI whenever you're trying to access a switch, okay, you can also secure access to privilege mode. And as you guys can see there, right? See right next to that first prompt in user mode, you type the word enable like we went through before. But since we went ahead and secured access to privilege mode, it's going to prompt you for a password. Okay. So this is one of the many examples and many ways that we can go ahead and secure user mode and privilege mode using simple passwords. Let's go ahead and keep going. Okay, so the diagram on the screen, right, it's showing you the commands, right, and that flow of traffic and how it looks to go ahead and access the device. Okay, so the PC at the top, right, that says console next to it, right? We have Ryan, right? Let's say Ryan is using his PC, he's connecting to the console directly, right? And so he's able to do so because of that command that's right next to the PC that says console, right? So line console 0, right? Because we're talking about the lines, right? The access lines to the device, okay? And so we would get into global configuration mode to make this change. We go into line configuration mode. Remember, we spoke about that. And so we get into line configuration mode. And first, we need to go ahead and type in the command under that says login, right? What we're saying is we want the device to prompt for login, okay? But what is it going to reference, right? Are we going to put a username? Are we going to put a password? No, right? The concept of this first section of chapter 6 is going over simple passwords. Simple passwords means there is no username associated. So we're just going to put in a password, right? And so under line configuration mode, right, for the console, we put in the login, right, to enable the login feature to go ahead and prompt us whenever we connect to the device via layer 1, since we're using console. And the password to access the device using the console port, right? Via console cable. All right. So as we get in, of course, then we'll be set to user mode. Okay. Let's do the other side, right? Let's say maybe Nelson, right? Nelson doesn't want to access a device layer one. Maybe he's working remote, but he still has to troubleshoot the device. So he's going to access the device via layer three. Okay. And so that is where we would go ahead and make changes to our VTY lines, right? And this is, of course, as a reminder, VTY lines, they're in reference to either using Telnet, right? Or using SSH, right? Secure shell. All right. And so we would have to edit these VTY lines, right? Lines 0 through 15, so 16 lines, to go ahead and mitigate that access, right? Just like that console access. We need to go ahead and mitigate that to all and add this change to all the VTY lines, right? So we put in that command, we get into VTY configuration mode, right? And similar to what we did before, we go ahead and enable logging in by put the word login and put it instead of our password, right? So our password to access the device via layer 3 using the VTY lines is hope. Okay, so right, so either way, right, if both people, right, Nelson and Ryan go ahead and access the device, right, they put in their respective passwords, either they're using layer 1, the console cable, or layer 3, right, the VTY lines, they will be brought into user mode. Now, what's going to happen, right, if they're trying to get to privilege mode, right? Because they're going to have limited access. Remember, you went through that before. They're going to have limited access, right? At user mode, we need to go ahead and get the privilege mode to start to poke around within the device, right? So the engineer, they went ahead and set a password to get into privilege mode, right? That's going to be the same across the board, okay? And it's called an enable secret, right? As you guys can see across the line, right? Enable secret, and that password is the engineer decide to call it love, right? So that's going to be the password globally for the device to access privilege exec mode, right? Before they go to global config or what have you, right? This is just some of the concepts, right? That I want you to understand and how the device looks and how that traffic flow looks to go ahead and access the device, right? And what that engineer and what you'll do in the future to go ahead and secure these devices, okay? I know you guys can read. I'm not going to go ahead and read it line by line, right? These are just the config checklist. You guys will see this in your book of how to go ahead and configure, right, your enable secret and go ahead and secure your console and secure, right, your VTY lines. Okay, so here's what I really want to show you. I want to go ahead and show you an example, right? Right now, we're looking at we're looking at how the configuration is done, right? You see, we need to go ahead and make this change in global configuration mode, right? Why do we need to make this change in global configuration mode? Well, again, let's use context here. Global configuration, meaning we're making changes to the entire device globally, all right? I want you guys to remember that. So, again, so if we circle back and we talk about what I told you guys, right? To get into privilege mode, that password is going to be the same whether we use layer 1 to access the device, console cable, right? Or whatever cable we use via layer 1, or layer 3, either SSH or Telnet, right? That password for privilege mode is going to be the same. So we set that in global configuration mode. We'll do enable secret love. Perfect. So now the enable mode will be set. Okay. So now that's done, we also need to go ahead and mitigate that access on the console and on the VTY lines, right? And as you guys can see, right, what this screenshot is showing that we're getting to different configuration modes, like configuration mode, set that password, and of course enable login, right, and exit. And we do the same thing for the VTY lines, right? We get into VTY configuration mode, we set that password, we enable login, right, by putting in the command login, and we exit, right? Save our configuration and we test it, okay? But, and we'll talk about, a little bit more about security later, right? But here's one thing, right? Here's one thing. If we look at our running configuration, right, and we do a show run start, and we do a show start, right? If we look at that configuration, you guys are going to see, we're going to see our passwords for accessing the console and accessing the VTYs in plain text. Okay. But our enable password, right, to get into privilege exec mode is encrypted. We'll come back to that later. I want you guys just to take note of that our passwords that we set in line configuration mode, in line console configuration mode, and VTY configuration mode are in plain text, meaning that a threat actor can go through our config, see it, and access the device. Let's keep going. So, with that being said, right, we're going to go ahead, right, we're going to jump into a CLI, we're going to jump into a device, and we're going to go ahead and do exactly what we saw today, right, in real time. So I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to pause the recording, I'm going to mute myself, and I'm going to switch over to my lab. So we're back, right? Got the lab set up, and again, we're just using one switch because we don't need a lot here. Okay. So what we're trying to prove, and what we're trying to do the proof of concept of, is seeing how to configure this, right? And in this example, right, we're seeing that a switch that's unconfigured, right? Let's say we just plugged it in, we entered it into production environment. It's unsecure, and let's say it's been there for a while. It's unsecure. There's no configs on there. There's nothing. Okay. And so, and of course, we'll let it roll through. For this lab, right, you can think of me as accessing the device via layer 1. Okay. So, as you can see, I'm inside the device. I can do things, right, without a password, right, without any mitigation, right? Very unsecure. Let's say I just pop this into production without putting it, right? Same as my example before. This is very unsecure, right? So let's go ahead and secure this device, right? Let's give it a host name too, right, to make it match. So let's go ahead and right now, right, as a refresher, as soon as we get into the device, we are in user mode. Let's go ahead and get to privilege exec mode by typing in enable. All right. And now we're in privilege exec mode because now it changed from being a greater than sign to a pound or a number sign, right? Depending on where you're from and how you were taught how to say a number or pound sign. It's always funny how people use how people identify that sign. But anyway, look at me going on a tangent. So if we go ahead, right, we're in. Now I want to go ahead and make this change. I want to go ahead and make this change to the host name, but I also want to make these changes, right, that we spoke about, changing that enable password and also changing the setting that password for either access to the console or access to the VTY lines via either layer 3 using SSH or Telnet. Let's go ahead and do that. So we go to global configuration mode. Like I told you guys, just for me, I'm going to go ahead and set that host name. Okay, so we have the host name set, right? So what are we going to do first, right? Let's go ahead and set that password to access privilege exec mode, right? So we're going to do enable, right? Let's question mark this in, right? Let's take a look how this really looks. All right, stop right there. I think I see my keyword, right? So the keyword enable, right? And what does that mean, right? That command is saying that we can, if we type in enable first, we can use this to modify the enable password parameters. Okay, so let's type that first. Okay, all right, so we have enable typed. Now we are able to modify the enable password parameters. But let's do a question mark to see what else we can do. Okay, so there's different things we can do, right? We can, as you can see, and of course, this is some of the stuff in this help command is, of course, CCNP level, but we'll talk about that later, right? We're just going to worry about secret, right? Because that's what we learned about today, right? So if we go ahead and type the word secret, what that's going to do is going to assign the privilege level secret, okay? Right? It's basically a password, right? But using the keyword secret is going to encrypt that password, okay? Hope you guys are following. So with that being said, we are going to go ahead and set that password to match what we saw in our lesson, right? So the password for privilege exec mode, right, is going to be love. So we got that set, okay? So that's done. The next thing we have to do is we need to go into the different line configuration modes to go ahead and configure those passwords for those, right? So let's go ahead and first go into line console mode, right? We're going to type 0, okay? And first we're going to set the password because with everything, I'm sure you guys saw in my last session, there's an order of operations for everything. So first we're going to go ahead and set that password, right? Our password being faith, right? And just to correct myself, just so you guys can see, right? I can go ahead and type the keyword password and then type the password, right? And if I just type in the password, what is that doing? Right? Let's make sure to make key note of this because I made a key point of in the running config that the password is shown in plain text. If I just do password space faith, what I'm doing here, right, is setting an encrypted clear text line password. This is exactly what I'm doing. Okay, let's keep going, right? So we went ahead and set that, but now we need to go ahead and enable logging in, right, and using a password. Okay, so I think I see what we're looking for, right? And we need this keyword, right? So let's talk about this keyword, right? The keyword login, right? What does it do, right? It enables password checking. Let's analyze that for a bit. So if underlying console configuration mode, right? Accessing the console, if we put in the command login, we're telling the device, we're telling the specific device, whether it be the switch or router, if somebody connects to the console, make sure you check for a password or you ask for a password. This is what putting this command in under this configuration mode will do. Okay? So let's go ahead and type in that word. And I wanted to make this a point and slow it down so you guys understand what that means. So we went ahead and did that, right? Now we also need to make that same change to the VTY lines, right? And again, as a reminder, the VTY lines being how we access the device via layer 3, whether using Telnet, right, or whether using SSH, okay? So let's go ahead and make that change. So line And let's go ahead and question mark it out. VTY, aka virtual terminal, right? And it's going to be 0 through 15. Okay. So same thing. First, we're going to do the proper order of operations. Type the password, right? And as a reminder, if we don't put, a certain number towards it, it's not going to go ahead. It's not going to go ahead and encrypt it, right? Or hide that password, right? Me just typing the password and then the password is going to configure it unencrypted, right? It's going to put it in clear text, right? So we go ahead and set that. And then I put, of course, the keyword login to make sure it checks whenever somebody tries to access the device, right? So we're here, right? We're here, we get in, and we went ahead and set that config, right? Let's go ahead and save it. Okay, let's go ahead and reset the terminal, and let's take a look at our configuration. Okay. All right, so let's back it up a little bit. Okay, so we did show startup config, we saved the configuration. Let's make sure what we learned in theory, what we learned in our lesson, matches up. So we did enable secret, right? And we know using the secret keyword is going to encrypt that password. As we can see, that password is encrypted. The password is love, but if we do a show startup config, a bad actor couldn't get into our configuration and see that password in clear text, right? In comparison, everything that we configured, either in line console configuration mode, in line virtual terminal or VTY mode, configuration mode, they're in plain text. Okay, so we have that set. All right, we have that set. Now to go ahead and test it. All right, just to prep for the VTY, I'm going to go ahead and set a password, right? I mean, set an IP address. I'm sorry, set an IP address for VLAN 1 so that we can test layer 3. Okay, IP address 10.10.10.1.5.5.0. Okay, email shut. Okay. All right. So we have that set, right? So we have that set. Let's go ahead and minimize this. And matter of fact, let's go ahead and add, whoops. Let's go ahead and add a PC. There we go. One, let's give it a nice little picture. Okay. And let's plug it into the switch. Okay. We're going to give this PC, right? Give this PC an IP address. Make sure layer 3 works all around. So 10.10.10.50. Go ahead and put in the subnet mask, and let's go ahead and put in the gateway. There we go. All right, let's test layer 3, well, layers 1 through layer 3. Make sure we can ping our gateway. All right, we can ping our gateway. So that's working fine. We're good to go. All right, so let's go ahead, bring that down, and let's see if we can go ahead and access the device. Okay, let's go ahead and exit. Now, see what it's telling us. Console 0, right? The console port is now available. Let's go ahead and see if we can try to access it. Okay, right? So now, on contrary to whenever we first booted up the device, we now have a secure device, right? So with everything that we put in, right? Whenever somebody tries to access the console, they're going to be prompted for a password, right? And I believe the password that we set for the console is fake. So we're going to put that in. Awesome. So we're actually in the device now, right? We're brought into user exec mode, right? Now let's go ahead and test our access to privilege exec mode from console mode, okay? So let's go ahead and put the keyword enable. Perfect, right? So we can confirm here that it's also going to prompt us for a password to get to privilege exec mode, okay? Let's type in that password. I believe it was love. Perfect. So we're here. Okay. So that password is set. Now let's go ahead and test layer 3. Okay. Let's test to see if we can access the device using the PC. Okay. Now let me go ahead and give me 1 second, guys. Second. All right. So let's go ahead and pull up this PC. All right. So we got the PC. Let's do the help command. All right. Blow this bad boy up. Right. All right, so we can use our login, right? That gives the ability to telnet to port on hosts at IP routing. So let's go ahead and type in our login, 10.10.10.1, and the port is going to be, give me 1 second. And that port should be, because SSH is 22, that port should be 23. Okay, so now we wait. Give it a minute. Okay, I don't see anything happening yet. Okay, doesn't look like that's working. Let's go ahead and reset this and try another way. Okay, let's bring this back over here. All right, 10.10.10.5. And of course, guys, just to let you guys know, I went in and just rebooted this PC, which means it lost its IP address information. Okay, and let's go ahead and verify pings. 10.10.10.1. All right, so we have successful pings. Telnet. Let's see if that works. All right, now let's use our login. 10.10.10.1. See what happens. And let's do a packet capture too. See if we see that traffic. coming through from the PC. Okay, there we go. Okay. Let's take it to another screen. Let's hit OK. Let's take a look how this looks. Okay, perfect. So we don't see anything there. Okay, so that did not work. Let's go ahead and so let's go ahead and troubleshoot. Let's go ahead and reboot this. Okay, let's go ahead and boot this up again. Awesome. All right, let's bring that in. Go ahead and .50. Oops, pretty happy there. And 10.10.10.1. All right, have that set. Perfect. All right, so we have that set. We have a gateway set. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to log in. And one thing I believe we have to do, let me just make sure. Line VCY, transport and pull it off, right? What that's going to do is enable us to either use SSH or Telnet, right? So let's go ahead and now try to go ahead and put the IP address, right? And of course, we're using Telnet, so let's go ahead and use 23. All right. And let's see if that works. And while that's happening, let's go ahead and see the packet capture. All right. And let's check the switch as well. Awesome. All right, so everything is looking good. Test those pings. All right, so the pings are working. All right. Let's go ahead and bring up the PC. And we may be having an error, so let's go ahead and try this with another switch. I think that will work. So let's go ahead. Now let's go ahead and add in another switch. All right. Go ahead and add that other switch. There we go. All right. Let's get this plugged up. All right. And let's boot this bad boy up. All right. So we're going to give it some time to boot up. We're going to configure it. So I'm going to mute myself, and when it comes time, then we'll go ahead and jump in. Okay, so it looks like switch is up, switch is good to go. Let's go ahead and okay, perfect. So we have that in. So a couple of things that we need to go ahead and configure since this is using layer 3. We need to go ahead and configure an IP address. We can configure that on our VLAN, all right? And we're going to do IP address 10.10.10.2. There we go. Excellent. Chat. Awesome. Great. Let's test layer 3.10.10.1. Awesome. Awesome. So we got that, right? Let's go ahead and reset the terminal. And let's go ahead and see if we can find a command that says telnet. We have the R login. See if it has a telnet command. So we have a telnet command. Let's go ahead and give that a try. All right? So the IP address, we're going to put it. Okay. All right. So let's go ahead and just try with telnet, okay? Awesome. Right? So, and let me go ahead and reset the terminal so this can look a little bit better, right? And I'll put in the password. 1 second, guys. Awesome. All right. And let's awesome. So let's go ahead and try to telnet. Awesome, right? So we're accessing it via layer 3, right? Now let's go ahead and put in our password. Let's see if it works. All right. Go ahead and take a look. It should be. Okay, let's take a look. Those passwords are not working, but we can troubleshoot in real time. Okay, password should be hope. All right, so let's take a look and see. Okay. All right, let's do one last one. All right. So for some odd reason, telnet's not working, but it's okay. It's all right. We can confirm here, right? We already tested it, and we already tested layer 3, right? So we can actually get to it, as you guys can see, right? And so this is the basis of it, right? This is the basis of it, how we go ahead and access the device via layer 3 using the VTY lines, how we secure it, and how we access it using the using layer 1 via the console cable. All right. Well, guys, thanks for attending. Hope you guys have a great day. Hope this did add value. And of course, if you guys have any questions, feel free to reach out. You guys have a great day.